let you know when it goes live. All right, I believe that we are now live. Thank you very much to everyone that is tuning in. Welcome to day 4 of our 5-day series in celebration, and also it's so that we can create awareness for not just Suicide Prevention Month, but also World Suicide Prevention Day, which is taking place tomorrow, which is the 10th of September. Obviously, for those of you that have been joining us throughout the course of this week, you'll know that I am your host. My name is Samira Killenbeck. It's been my absolute pleasure and privilege to bring this series to you. We started off with day 1 with Esther Akin-George, who shared with us her fantastic story and journey, suffering with bipolar disorder, and the means and mechanisms that she's put in place to really and truly ensure that she is at optimum well-being and mental health. On day 2, we had the CEO and founder of Talk Support UK, with whom we are actually running our charity fundraiser, and the awareness of Suicide Prevention Month is actually in conjunction with Talk Support UK. And it was wonderful to hear from Ace with regards to the genesis of the organization, what it's doing, boots on the ground to support the community with its mental health and emotional well-being needs. Yesterday, we had fantastic Sharon Lawrence, as well as Linda Fajor, who are both nutritionists that were looking at the importance and also the impact of nutrition, supplementation, and lifestyle on our mental health and emotional well-being. We are in for a fantastic day 4, everyone. I am so blessed and honored to bring these 2 amazing ladies to you today for our day 4 session, where we're actually going to be shifting gears and really and truly looking at the impact of grief and bereavement on those that are survivors who have a suicide loss. Now, I want to introduce both of our guest speakers, and then we will jump right in. We've got another transatlantic session. Yesterday we had London and Florida in the house, and today I believe we have Massachusetts. Yes. Is that correct? We've got Massachusetts and London again. We like to keep this transatlantic, guys. This truly is a global family. We've got Tessa Morrison, who's an amazing friend of mine. We've known each other for a short space of time, but it feels like we've been sisters forever. She's a fantastic bereavement counsellor. She's also one of the trustees of Talk Support UK, which is the registered charity Talk Counselling CEO. We also have, hailing out of Massachusetts, Jen Hoy. I'm so honored to enter into this new friendship with you as well, my love, who's based out in the Massachusetts area. We connected literally within 24 hours, but her story is so beautiful, so amazing. When you guys get to connect with her heart, you'll know why I feel so blessed and privileged that David Logan, based out in Scotland, who is a dear friend of mine, connected us together. Jen Hoy has an amazing story. She's actually created Healing Miles, and this is all in aid and also in the love and memory of her brother, Teddy Bosco, who unfortunately is now dearly departed in May of 2017. And both of these women are doing fantastic works in the community to really and truly help everyone look at grief and bereavement as something that we can heal together. And so today is all about sharing those ideas and those journeys with you all. So ladies, thank you so much and welcome to the day 4 of our World Suicide Prevention Series.
Hi, thank you.
So what I would like to do, and by the way, everyone, you know the drill. This is day 4. Please pop your comments in the chat. Please show these ladies some love in the chat. We will make sure that we will allow for some questions. Today is going to be a fairly emotional session for me. So I'm going to say from now, if I shed some tears, ignore me. But I'm so overwhelmed and privileged to be in the presence of these 2 ladies. So I'd just like for us to jump right in. And if you could share each of your journeys, as it were, particularly when it comes to the subject matter at hand of suicide. And Jen, if I can start with you, my love.
Sure. So as Sam shared, I lost my brother Teddy in May of 2017. He was born 4 months prematurely in 1975. He was a twin, and he was the only surviving twin. His brother died shortly after birth. So he was special in so many ways. And throughout his lifetime, he was one of those people who was a giver and a helper, always, the clown in the room, the one to bring a smile, the one to cheer you up. We grew up, we were super close in age. We tortured each other mercilessly, but we're fiercely loyal. We grew up in kind of the free range 70s and 80s, and we spent a lot of time walking from place to place with our little group of cousin friends. And it really, as we became adults, and I married young, I was 23, my husband and my brother and I kind of all grew up together. My kids, I have 3 kids. They're his only niece and nephews, but any child that ever came in contact with Teddy called him Uncle Teddy. And he was always like, is Uncle Teddy going to be at the party? Because if he's not, I'm not going. So when he passed, of course it was shocking, but I just felt my whole world crumbled. My parents had already lost one child, and now they've lost a second. I can't even imagine the depth of their grief and the trauma, of my family finding him. It was my first experience with a suicide loss that close. And I didn't know what I should do. I didn't know how to behave. I didn't know who to turn to. And I found very quickly that it's a very isolating loss. About around the 3rd anniversary of his passing coincided with the onset of the coronavirus pandemic. If anyone was meant to be here during that time, it was my brother Teddy. He was perpetually prepared for everything. In fact, at the time of his death in May, he had already been packed for months for his July camping trip. He was just that kind of person. And he would have gotten us all through it with helpful advice, and he would have come and helped us do whatever needed to be done, but he also would have put some levity into the situation. He was an incredible practical joker. Some of the pranks that he pulled, I don't even know how he thought of them. But people still talk about some of the pranks that he's pulled. So I felt, everyone was home, and I was feeling overwhelmed with the thought of another year passing without my brother. I felt like I had lost my parents. I'd lost a lot of friends who really weren't comfortable with the topic of suicide. And so rather than face that, they just kind of faded away. And I needed to feel like I could be close to my brother. And that was, thinking of when we were younger and we walked everywhere. I just took one of my dogs and went out for a walk. But at that time, I was so unhealthy as a result of 3 years of dealing with this grief, but with unhealthy coping mechanisms, as you had mentioned, Sam. I had severe insomnia. I coped by eating. I had gained a tremendous amount of weight. I was unhealthy. And I just really wasn't able to participate in life. So that first day that I went out to walk, I just remember I barely made it around the corner. I had to take a break. And the whole time I was just so filled with rage. And I just, in my head, was yelling at my brother the entire way. But I got home and I felt a little bit better. I felt like, he's not here, but I can still talk. I can still talk to Teddy. He's always going to be here. I see pieces of him in each of my kids. And any song that I hear, I remember things. So as I, started walking more and more, I found that I was feeling better, both physically and mentally. And pretty soon walking became a really critical piece of my self-care, not just for the health benefits, but also that time alone where I could reflect and meditate and think about my brother. And the one day that I finally made it around the block, and it took me a couple of months, it's about a mile and a half, a song came on that reminded me of him. And in the back of my head, I could hear him saying, "Why are you so chicken? Keep walking. What are you doing? This is stupid. Like, just keep walking." And I did. I just kept walking. And Healing Miles started because Suicide Prevention Month in 2020 was in the midst of the pandemic, and the normal 5K that my family and I did in his memory had gone virtual. And I felt, people are hurting. People are isolated because of the pandemic. I imagine that mental health crisis lines were probably getting more calls than normal. And this isn't a time to just be silent. So what could I do that was something that my brother would have done? And my brother would have walked 1,000 miles if it meant carrying somebody's pain even for a minute. So I reached out in an online support group and offered to dedicate the first 5K of each day to one of their loved ones. So, my feeling was that I could bring them some comfort, share their loved one with the world, and hopefully reach at least one person and let them know they're not alone, connect them to available resources, give them hope. Because even if I could only reach one person, I felt like my brother's death wouldn't have been in vain. And very quickly, I think within not even an hour, my inbox was flooded. And I realized I could walk for the rest of my life and barely make an impact. And over time, I really absorbed the gravity of the situation, started learning about the data, the statistics, how suicide doesn't discriminate, not by age, not by race, not by class, education, nothing. I've walked for people all over the world as young as 10 years old. And that breaks my heart that we're walking for babies as young as my youngest. We're walking for babies, and suicide is a completely preventable death. And I think people need to know that it's okay to not be okay. And just through the act of posting and being open, I think encouraged some people to reach out to me when they didn't know what to do to support a loved one. And so they knew I was a safe space that they could open up to. And it's just been an absolute incredible journey. I think the 1-year anniversary of Healing Miles is coming up this month. And in that time, I've probably walked for about 150, 200 families. Most I've never met, but a lot of these families are really close to my heart. And I remember things about their loved ones long after I've walked for them. For example, there's a young boy in the UK, Kai Harvey. The thing that I remember most about him is his taste in music. One of his favorite bands was Joy Division, which is a group that I grew up listening to in the late 80s. And it would pop up in my playlist and any time I hear this one particular song, I think of him and I think of his mom and his sisters and his enormous family. And, it's families like that, although my original circle of friends has gotten a lot smaller, my world has opened immensely. I feel loved and supported, and I feel like I'm better able to love and support other loss survivors and people in my own life, including my husband and my kids, who frankly were probably feeling a little neglected in those first 3 years.
Sure. Thank you ever so much
Thank you.
for sharing with us. And I mean, the thing is that you touched upon the age groups there that you have walked for, and the youngest being 10, which is mind-boggling. I mean, Tessa, if I can bring you in, my love, because I know that you lost your best friend.
She wasn't my best friend, but she was a very close friend at school. And oh my gosh, I had a cry earlier on about it because I was just sorting through some stuff. You know, you have these boxes in your house and you've like, oh, I'll look at it another day. And then my other half has said to me, nope, we're doing it today. So I've gone through this book and I've found this book, and it was about my school. And there was a little short poem that Tanya had written. And I just broke down. I try not to break down now because she was so talented. She done what she done in the middle of our GCSEs. And to sit in an exam room with an empty desk where your friend should be is one of the hardest things to do. And 31 years later, I still cry because she had so much to live for. And I know it affects quite a lot of us that was in her year, because a few months ago, a lot of us are on Facebook together, and somebody put up a picture, and her and another young man that we'd gone to school with, he unfortunately has passed, but his wasn't suicide. It was through sickness. And to look at this picture of this vibrant teenager, and then my last image of her was actually in her coffin, and it was just like, what a difference. And it's at that age, at 16, there was no support from anybody. I thank God I have a good mum who was very supportive. And those of us that it really affected at school, we helped each other the best way we could. The school done a little memorial for her, but it wasn't enough. I don't think enough was done because of being that age, and that they didn't realise the impact it had on our mental health. Because I think if we'd had counselling at that time, we would have got through things a lot better. I saw the strongest of males in our year, who we classed as a bully, crumble when we were going through this. And it was just like, wow. Because we all know people are born and that we eventually die. But to have a friend do that at such a young age, obviously she must have been going through so much torment when she done what she done. But I don't know. I'm just glad I actually knew her, to be quite honest with you. As sad as it is, I'm just glad I knew her. And I will never, ever forget her. Never forget her. There's songs, there's places. I can't even now, I can't drive down her road where she used to live. I literally physically can't. I go around other streets to avoid her house because she didn't need to die. I wish she hadn't done it. Sorry. It's just, when I think of her and how much she had to give, how much love, she was so talented. She played several musical instruments. She was in top group in our year, so she was very intelligent, but she was just very, very sad. I don't want to say what caused her to do what she did, because that angers me even more, because it then leads on to other things. But I just glad I knew her. I'm just really glad I knew her. I'm sorry.
And
I'm okay.
let me just say that for both of you, excuse me, for both of you, may Tanya and Teddy's soul rest in peace. And for everyone on here, excuse me, for everyone who is on here, if you have experienced grief and loss, may your loved ones, friends or family, may their souls rest in eternal peace. And ladies, thank you so much for blessing us and gifting us with your heart, because this is what this is about. It's not an easy subject to talk about. Death in itself is not an easy subject to talk about. But when we drill deeper and look at the causes of death, unfortunately, suicide is a subject that has become taboo. There's a lot of shame surrounding suicide. And I know for all of us, what we want to do is to remove that shame, remove that guilt, and say that, and celebrate life. We want to celebrate our departed ones. But also, as you said, Jen, we want to see how to prevent anyone having to be a suicide loss survivor. And we also want to look at how we can prevent anyone from being pushed to the brink where they end up taking their own life. So thank you so much for sharing. I mean, looking at the families that you've both impacted through the different works that you do, what would you say, because grief is something that no one is alien to, we're all at some stage going to experience grief and experience bereavement. What would you say would be some of the infrastructures that you would put in place to help someone that is grieving and that is dealing with a death, especially related to suicide? Jen, I'll start with you,
okay.
my love.
Okay. I think there needs to be more support available for suicide loss survivors, no matter what. You know, you brought up a tremendous point, the shame and the stigma, and not knowing why is often something that suicide loss survivors struggle with. Many people who die by suicide don't leave a note. It's not as simple as this person died from suicide because of X, Y, and Z. I mean, that was one of the things that kept me up every night for 3 years thinking, what could I have done differently? Why am I here and not him? You know, a lot of it was guilt over remaining behind when my brother, who had this kind and gentle soul, was gone. You know, and my feeling is he was, you know, the better child. He was a good person, a kind-hearted person. And why am I here? And there has to be a reason for that. I didn't know where to find support. And frankly, a lot of the counselors in our area, they weren't trained suicide bereavement counselors. I think making people aware that that's a very narrow focus, a distinct focus that a counselor should have, because it's so different from any loss that I've ever experienced. And so just making more support available. And as Tessa talked about her friend, Tanya, I thought about what can we do even before you're a suicide loss survivor. That's something that I've been advocating for locally, you know, for prevention, postvention, normalizing conversations beginning in elementary school with age-appropriate content. But we keep hearing over and over, it's too delicate for children. It's not. If I'm walking for a little boy who's 10 years old, those conversations have to start. And then you look at the data, and in the US, suicide is the second leading cause of death for youth 10 to 24, behind only accidental injury. And for Asian American kids of the same age group, it's the leading cause. So these conversations need to happen at home, at school. Training needs to be given not just to teachers and staff, but to anyone who comes in contact with a child, school bus drivers, cafeteria workers, things like that, so that kids are better prepared to be resilient and deal with these big emotions and know who they can speak to, so that they don't end up a loss survivor or their family isn't experiencing that loss. But then after the loss, it's that support. I didn't know where to turn.
Yeah.
And to add on to that, Jen, is the fact that parents are our children's first teachers, and you must see certain little things, changes in your child. Even if you're a workaholic parent, you can still see subtle changes in your child, because no parent can say to me, oh, I didn't notice. There's always a little telltale sign to let you know that there's something wrong. Because from my own experiences as a child, my mum, just me putting the way I've opened the front door when I've come home from school, what happened, Tess? She knows something has happened to me. And that's because, not just because we're very close, but she's in tune with me and my brothers. So parents have a huge impact on these things. And as I said, we're their first teachers, and we need to let them know it is always safe to come and talk to us, unless the issue actually is within the home environment. But if there is no issues in the home environment, you are the first port of call if they're distressed over something, unhappy about anything negative. They should be coming to you and discussing it with you, so that we don't have these things happening. But as I will reiterate, unless it's the actual home environment that is causing the distress to that child, for them not to be able to talk. But then in my family, both on my mum and dad's side, and what we do as well within our immediate family, we encourage children that if you don't feel comfortable to talk to mum or dad, find another family member, adult responsible, to talk to if you're upset over something and need help. Because going to one of your own friends can't necessarily help you, because they themselves are going through whatever traumas and challenges as teenagers do, because all the hormones and everything. But if you've got somebody else you can talk to, always know that there's somebody safe to talk to. If there isn't such great agencies as ours are readily available, it's just really frustrating knowing that 31 years later, we're still having this and such high numbers. It's just really scary.
Absolutely. And I mean, the thing is that you both have touched on two things that sprang to mind that I wanted to actually ask you before we went live, which was the role of parents and the role of teachers. Because to be fair, both sets are probably what our children come into contact the most, right? Our parents and teachers. What do you think could be done more of in helping parents with identifying subtle changes, and also when it comes to teachers as well? What kinds of things do you think could be put in place, whether it is trainings or but just from your personal perspective, to get that dialogue and communication going? What types of things and safeguards need to be?
Well, the primary school that my children attended, they've got this organisation called Place to Be, where they can talk to not so much counsellors, but a responsible adult if they're having issues in the school or even issues at home, so that they not just left wondering who can I talk to, which is really, really brilliant. And I think that if every school, be it primary or secondary, has those sort of organisations within the school to help the children, because without these sort of things in place, where are they to go? Because like I said, they can't exactly talk to their friends because they're still young themselves. And as Jen said, a 10-year-old, they're very, as much as a lot of them look like extroverts, a majority of them are introverts and don't know how to express themselves. And especially if they're told to keep something a secret, don't tell anybody, they just don't know what to do. And then if they are being bullied at school by another child, they feel like they're alien and don't know what to do, because if this person doesn't like them, maybe everybody else doesn't like them. And it's just fortunate that they are such organisations, but we need more, and we need more awareness about it. And we also need the schools to stop making the victims the aggressor, that they're not really the victim. Because what I noticed is that when there have been certain negative things happening in schools, the school will always reward the bully and chastise the victim for being a victim. So the schools do have a big role to play, because when we went through what we went through, once the memorial service was over, it was back to normal for them, because they then went home to their families, didn't bother them, but we're still left with the loss of our friend. I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard.
And I mean, Jen, you actually, you know, started the dialogue with regards to, we need to be able to have this open dialogue. We need to be able to talk to our young people, because it's not 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds, etc., who are dying by suicide. It is a lot of young people and a lot of young kids. Have you seen, because of the way in which we've all had to deal with COVID and the pandemic, that there's actually been a shift in the types of conversations that are actually taking place in America, where it comes to the issue and the subject matter of suicide?
I think that there's a lot of focus on resiliency and self-care and checking in on your mental health. But, you know, and I don't know how to say it diplomatically, so I'm just going to say it. If suicide is the second leading cause of death of children in the United States, why has it not been declared an epidemic? Why is there not funding, national level funding? And my feeling is it should go beyond the national level. It's an epidemic across the globe. Why isn't the World Health Organization forming a task force and giving guidelines and recommendations the way you would do with an illness that is spreading across the globe, like COVID, where there are guidelines and education and training on what you can do to prevent the spread of this? And then, you know, even in the US, it's not consistent. Only a certain number of states mandate training for teachers and staff. In Massachusetts, it's recommended, but not enforced. It's not regulated. But then there's organizations like the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention who have developed, I mean, they put money behind research and policy work, but they've developed school policies and programs and age-appropriate curriculum from elementary through secondary that is mostly free of charge to any school district that wants them. Why aren't more districts taking advantage of them? When I spoke with my own school district, they had been working on a policy with a local organization, but because of COVID, it was delayed. But my question to the school district is, it says right on their website, this is easily modifiable to meet your policies. Like, why are we waiting 3 years? Like, I'm concerned to see what the numbers look like, because the numbers that I'm reporting on are from 2019 data. What are we going to see when the 2020 report comes out from the CDC? I don't see it being improved based on the private messages and submissions I get for Healing Miles walks, and the families that have been impacted, even local families who have reached out to me and said, I don't know what to do. My 9-year-old is contemplating suicide. We need to do something and not act as though it's this secretive thing, this delicate thing, because if it's the second leading cause of death for kids in the US, we should be putting money and resources behind it as we would to find a cure for childhood cancer. And that's just my feeling. I know I'm pretty aggressive and bold about it, but I'm angry. I see these faces. I never forget these kids' faces. And I think of their parents on Mother's Day and Father's Day and holidays. And as my own kids celebrate milestones like graduations and prom, like I walked with a local family on what would have been their daughter's 21st birthday. You know, she died by suicide when she was 14. She never got a license. She never went to prom. She never graduated from high school. She didn't go to college. She didn't experience all those firsts. And it's just, it's devastating, because then you look at what's left behind. You know, and even when families are able to put their energy into activities that bring hope to others, you're still broken.
Sorry, I am 100% agree with you. I'm trying not to cry. Everyone who knows me knows I am very emotional, and I love and I feel both of your passion for this subject, both yourself, Jen, and Tessa. And I am so grateful and glad that you are both being strong in your conviction and saying it as it is, because it is a global pandemic. Absolutely. But it's only a pandemic is only seen as such when it's convenient for certain individuals.
Considering children, sorry to cut you, Sam, considering children are our future generations, they should be protecting them. They should not be allowing such negative things to be happening, because I'm not being funny. If you can find money for firearms, you can find money to help the children. We shouldn't have to keep looking for charities and people's generosity to be helping these young people. We need the government to do more. And it's not just over here in the UK, it's a global thing, because it's not just, oh, it only happens in the UK and the US. No, because people are people, and it's going to be happening everywhere. As much as we would like to think it's not, we know it is. And for a child to no longer want to be with their parents, and I'm not saying that they're horrible when they're doing what they're doing, but the pain that's been inflicted on their parents when they've taken their lives, that's not the order, how it's meant to be. A parent doesn't have their children to bury them, even when it's been a tragedy of an illness or an accident. But for your child to do that, that's not the order, and more needs to be definitely done. More needs to be done.
I
really
mean,
does.
both of you have got your own children. And so what kinds of conversations, and both of you have got young children, what kinds of conversations are you having with your own kids about the subject of suicide?
I haven't discussed it with them. I think they're just a little bit too young
I know
at the
you
moment. Yeah, mine are 8 and 10. And I'll answer everything else but that with them at the moment, because it is death is hard enough. When my dad passed away in 2016, it was hard enough explaining to them, Granddad's no longer here and you won't be able to play with him, you won't be able to do this and that with him. But we talk about him every day. We look at his photos, we look at the things that he'd bought them and what have you. And it's completely different. But suicide, I'm just really not ready for that conversation. Really not ready for that with them just yet.
So Jen, because I genuinely believe, and maybe because I don't have children of my own, it's easy for me to be an outsider looking in. But it is a subject that we have to broach at some stage with children. What advice would you share on how we should actually start to approach the matter of death by suicide with our younger generation?
I think that's a wonderful question, because a lot of parents do feel like it's too big of a conversation for young kids. It's not. When my brother died, my youngest was 5 and my oldest was a senior in high school. I obviously talked about it a little bit differently with the youngest than I did with the older, but they were all impacted. I struggle with anxiety and depression. My kids are all pretty anxious, and we've had some pretty important, scary conversations in our house. But I'm not delicate about it in any way. And I have asked my youngest, like, are you thinking of hurting yourself? It's okay to ask that. Asking someone if they're thinking of hurting themselves or if they're thinking bad thoughts about themselves doesn't mean that you're going to put an idea in their head. But it does let them know that you are a safe person to talk to. And so sometimes if I can see that my youngest, when he's anxious, he gets fixated on things like time, like exactly what time will you be home? And then I know something is going on. So I'll just say, okay, tell me everything that's in your brain. Tell me everything you're worried about. And it might start off with, I don't know when the next season of Fortnite is going to be released, to, Mommy, when you are sad, I'm afraid you're going to leave, like Uncle Teddy. And so we talk about it, and I say, I'm not going to leave you. I'm here. You can always talk to me. I want them to know, I stay connected with my daughter while she's in college, because she does struggle with anxiety, and we meet with a therapist as a family to help her, to learn how to help her. But I think not discussing it when they're young is almost dangerous, because they don't know how to make sense of these big emotions. So I think if you start talking about the big emotions and what they're feeling, and it doesn't mean that you need to necessarily offer a solution, because sometimes somebody's just looking for comfort. But a lot of us I grew up in a time when kids didn't show their emotion. It wasn't appropriate to be emotional or have outbursts or be emotional in any way. And so my brother and I leaned on one another, and I protected him. He was bullied a lot, and I got into a lot of fistfights that we kept a secret from our parents because I knew I would be in trouble. And he knew that if he came home and said kids were picking on him, like, he might also, like, he was afraid he would be in trouble. So we leaned on each other tremendously. But I think if we had started having those open discussions when we were younger, we would have been better equipped to deal with some of the big things that happen as you get older. And I think when you start these conversations young, I always think of there's a charismatic, unbelievably talented and handsome fitness trainer from Tyler, Texas. His name was Drake Scott. He was 26 when he died by suicide. His death made the news because the entire community was just shocked and devastated. You know, I think if we teach kids that they don't have to go through things alone, and show kids that it's okay to not be okay, that if you're having these thoughts, who can you talk to? If you don't feel like you can talk to your mom, like Tessa said, you know, who is your safe adult? So that when they get to be Drake's age, they're not feeling like I need to be strong because I'm a fitness trainer. I'm a man. I'm going to be super strong. Because being strong and courageous also means having the courage to tell somebody that you need help.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Definitely.
I absolutely agree. And I think the thing is that this is the start. This is where it starts, where all of us can normalize. I think that's the situation that is sometimes the missing piece, is just normalizing certain emotions that we have, normalizing conversations of death of all types, but also not actually burying our emotions, as it were, when it comes to suicide. But I think also for us as adults, we have to be on our journey of our own emotional well-being as well, so that we can therefore then be in a position to grow and learn with our children, because we have to deal with our grief as well. As I know that I've got godchildren, we take on their grief as well. So I think that this is a wonderful start. And I know, Jen, that you have various seminars and Zooms that you conduct, where you are really and truly getting the word out there that it is okay to not be okay. And let's have this conversation. Tessa, I know that you speak privately with adults about bereavement and grief. It's just wonderful for all of us to kind of lift the lid, as it were, about this subject, and really start to let everyone know that please like and share this, because right now we know it doesn't matter where you're based in the globe. I've got friends all across, whether it's in Asia Pacific, Caribbean, the Americas, here in the UK, and of course across Europe. It's okay to not be okay, and know that this is a safe space. There are so many agencies that are available. Talk Support, Talk Counseling CIO, which is fondly known as Talk Support, is one of those on the ground here for us in the UK. The telephone number is 0203 6677 The website, talksupport.uk. So www.talksupport.uk. Fantastic support network across the UK that you can get access to. You are not in this alone. And if it's that you're a parent and you want to know how you can actually, reach out to your nieces, your nephews, your kids, please make sure that you do have a look at the website, actually call in and see how best that we can all grow and support each other, because no one should have to feel so alone that they can't talk and they end up dying.
Definitely.
Tessa, you were going to say something else.
Yeah, because especially like over here right now, where there's a lot of negative things happening within the community with the young people doing what they're doing to each other. And I think that parents need to step up more. It's not solely their fault when certain things happen where their children are concerned, but I think if you work together with your children and let them know that even if they're in the wrong in something, to come and talk to you, as well as the fact that the family should always be aware what's going on with the children. Because when I hear children say, I need my privacy, yes, I'm not saying that you don't need some form of privacy, but how much privacy do you need that you're hiding something from me? Because like I said, my two are 8 and 10, and I'm already telling them, don't allow anybody to influence you to join a gang, to anybody tells you to hold anything for them. You don't do that. You don't keep, and most of all, don't keep secrets from your dad and I. You don't keep secrets from your your uncles, your other grandparents. Tell people when negative things are happening. Tell adults, because at the end of we can't protect you if we don't know what's going on. And yes, obviously, we all need our privacy. But as a child, you still need to keep an open line to us so we can protect you. Can't protect you if we don't know what's going on. Even if it's the most silliest of things, that, oh, so-and-so's not talking to me anymore, Mum. I need to know that.
Yeah.
Because it can escalate into something bigger.
Absolutely.
So it's so important that we do talk to each other. Even though I said earlier, I still don't know when I'll be ready to talk about suicide with my children. But I do tell them all the time, talk to me, no matter what it is. Talk to me about I think a lot of that has to do with how I was raised. And my mum always told us, talk to me. Even if you've done something wrong, talk to me. Because I can't protect you if I don't know what's happening. And I think that's where a lot of parents, they think, oh, well, they got to this age now. They're old enough. They're responsible enough. Yeah, they may be old enough and responsible enough. But you're human, they're human. We all know the feelings that we go through. And we know at times we do. Because why do we tell our friends things when we're feeling in a negative way, when something's upset us? Obviously, our children go through the same thing, just that they're miniatures of us at that stage. So communication is so important, so important.
Yeah.
And I just think that people, you don't need to be talking every minute of the day, but you do need to have a time for your children to feel comfortable. Mum, this is going on. Dad, that's going on. And if mum and dad is not there, auntie, uncle, or even an elder cousin, whoever the family member is, that you feel safe to talk to. So important. Families need to be families more and stop being so isolated.
Jen, before I bring you in, my love, I just want to read something that Lynette Harvey has actually shared in the comments. And thank you to everyone that is joining us live. And also thank you for all of the wonderful comments that you're sharing of support for these amazing ladies. But Lynette has said, just as we have physical education lessons in school, we should also have mental emotional education lessons. And by that, I don't mean a lesson that's brief. It covers a whole different array of subjects in terms of lessons that reaches nothing other than mental emotional health. So definitely, I agree with you there, Lynette, that within the school system, especially for us in the UK, I know that in Japan, they practice mindfulness in schools. And that is something that, dependent on the type of school that your child attends in this country, it's actually just blanket over there in Japan. Whereas for us over here, it seems like this anomaly, like it just doesn't happen. And I definitely feel that whilst we are on this wave, as Jen, you mentioned about self-care and really people are starting to take seriously their mental well-being, it is something that we need to have as a staple in our schools. But Jen, I just want to bring you in with what Lynette has shared, and also Tessa. What are your thoughts, my love?
Well, first, Lynette is the mom of the young man, Kai. I carry her whole family in my heart every day. Her youngest and my youngest are very similar. They have no problem telling us what's going on. I call Joseph the informer because he'll tell me not only what's going on with him, but everybody else. but he's a clown and he's a lot like my brother. And I see sometimes when I yell at him, I accidentally call him Teddy because he does things that are so much like my brother that it's uncanny. And Lynette brings up an amazing point, because one of the rebuttals that our local school committee had for me is, well, we're implementing social emotional learning. That's a very small piece of the puzzle. I think it needs to be woven in as part of the tapestry of the school curriculum, beginning at a young age. One of the families for whom I walked, they were able to implement, it's called the Hope Squad. It's educating teens to be like suicide resources for their peers, because a lot of kids don't feel comfortable going to an adult, but they do all talk, they all text, they all Snapchat. If you see a text or a Snapchat that's alarming and you're a 16, 17-year-old, do you know what to do? And this program trains them. AFSP has a similar program. There's also, so much out there in terms of resources for families, for schools, for kids. It's not getting used. And when we talk about self-care, people think, oh, let's take a bubble bath. But I don't think I've taken a bubble bath since I was 5. That isn't self-care to me. But like this walking and now running have become a really important piece to my own self-care. And I know that my little one, if he has more than one event in a day, I know that sets him up for a chaotic evening, anger. And so as a parent, I've had to learn what do my children need to be supported emotionally. It might mean we don't overschedule ourselves, because he's not a kid that can overschedule himself. Whereas my oldest was playing 4 sports in a season because he needed that. He needed that. And when he was injured, I could see he was feeling depressed because he wasn't able to play. So understanding, it's not a one size fits all for our kids. I mean, just as each of our kids is different, so is what they need. And then in terms of the school, if they start this at an early age, if you start having these discussions in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, primary school, they're going to feel more comfortable. It's going to be part of their everyday conversation. You will have normalized it for them without them realizing you're trying to make something normal.
And that's actually what I wanted to ask you is, how do we go about normalizing this subject matter? But you've actually just answered that, my love. But before we finish up this evening, because I appreciate that we are approaching the top of the hour, and guys, can you please pop some love in the chat? Because I feel genuinely that what has been discussed today will 100% save lives. And the reason it will save lives is because it will start the dialogue. It will start the conversation. And that actually is potentially the missing piece. Literally just talking. But before we finish up, I do want to bring it to the fact that as part of Suicide Prevention Month, and actually specifically World Suicide Prevention Day, which is tomorrow, we are running with Talk Support a charity fundraiser. It's a little bit of a fun raffle that we are running, and it's £5 British, which is like $7 US, per raffle ticket. You can have as many raffle tickets as you want. 100% of the proceeds are being donated to Talk Support for the great works that they are doing in the community, boots on the ground. But what I wanted to say before I talk about the fact that there's a fantastic prize, which is a pamper for 2, as well as a self-care hamper that can be won, which it's just a nice little gift. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is that money is actually contributing to saving lives. That's actually the true gift, is the blessing that we know we can be to supporting so many lives across so many demographics. But if I can just ask both of you ladies, why would you encourage someone to actually participate in the raffle if they haven't bought a ticket, even one ticket? Why would you say that they need to make sure that they get at least one ticket within this raffle? I'll start off with yourself, Tessa.
I would say to help those that need the help out there so that we can continue what we're doing, because the awareness needs to be out there. And if they themselves can help at least one person, that's one person that's been saved.
Absolutely. And Jen?
Organizations like yours can't do what you do without help. And even one donation, you said it's £5
Yeah.
That can go a long way in an organization like yours. And the only way you can operate is through continued support. And that's why I continue to support as many of these types of organizations as I can, because it is so important. And as Tessa said, if we can help just one person, we will have made a difference.
Absolutely. Ladies, you have been an absolute pleasure to speak with, an absolute blessing to not just me, every single person that is watching live and every single person that shares this and will watch the replay. Please make sure that you show these ladies some love. Make sure that you continue to support the great works that we are doing across the board. By the way, please make sure that you do go to Healing Miles, the website. I'm going to pop it also in the actual summary of this recording, so that we can also make sure that we're looking across the pond and seeing the amazing stuff that Jen is doing. I know that she is actually raising funds as well through the Boston Marathon. Is that correct?
Yep, I'll be running as part of Team AFSP, supporting American Foundation for Suicide Prevention in the 125th Boston Marathon in October. And as I said, a little over a year and a half ago, I couldn't walk around the block. So I may be coming in last, but it's been a tremendous journey. And every step that I take, I'm thinking of everyone who has touched my heart. Because as much as I hope I'm bringing comfort to others, all of these connections have really helped me as well.
Oh, wonderful. Ladies, I cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much for everyone that has attended live. Thank you so much to everyone who will watch the replay. Please like and share this. We need to get the message out. Okay, this is all about our mental well-being, our emotional well-being. It starts in the home. It starts with self. And if we can make sure that we are saving our babies, okay, that we are speaking to our kids, then that will translate nicely into adulthood. Each one reach one. Please make sure that you watch this, you share it, and that you go and buy your ticket, guys. Looking forward to seeing you all on tomorrow's show, which is our final of our 5-day series. It will be 6 p.m. till 7 p.m. UK, 1 p.m. till 2 p.m. Eastern. And take care, guys. Stay well, stay blessed. And thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to meet you.
You as well.
Thank you.
Take care.